Hey Reddit, when did your something is not right here gut feeling ever save you? My mom dropped my 3 years old brother off at daycare before she had to work in the morning. When she got to work, she had this terrible feeling something was wrong with him. She ended up leaving work and drove to the daycare. She found the daycare lady inside sleeping while the daycare kids, including my brother, were running around the pool. My brother never went back to that daycare again. In Canada, 50% of toddler drownings are in backyard pools. Kids drown so much faster than you think they could. I had a gut feeling I should pull my wallet and phone out of my purse. Not even 20 seconds later, I got mugged. The man dragged me across the sidewalk and stole my purse, but all he ended up getting was a juice box and my birth control. Forgot one. About 10 years ago, working security at a site about 50 miles from home, got off shift at midnight, and didn't bother to change out of uniform because I was only going to stop for gas. 2 stations in the town I was working in were open after midnight, but it slipped my mind as I drove past the first one. Pulled into the other, same brand, same gas price, same sort of dump entirely, and just didn't like something about it. Nobody else around but a clerk that I could see, but I decided to go back to the other one. Topped off and headed back out of town, I get close to that station again. 3 city cop cars, 2 deputies, and a state trooper are outside blocking the road with guns drawn. Turns out a city cop walked in on a robbery. Dude put a bullet in his vest, and the store owner knocked the robber out cold with a bat before the cop could recover enough to get his gun out. That would have been me, in a uniform with a nice shiny badge, but no body armor. Wow, in all earnestness, you actually dodged a bullet on that one. I went to the hospital with shortness of breath and my heart racing. They did a chest x-ray, blood test for blood clots, ECG, and a few other tests, but all came back normal. After observing me overnight, everything still looked good. Oxygen saturation was perfect. My heart rate was still a bit elevated, but nothing too crazy, and it seemed that it was likely leftover symptoms from a bad virus that I'd had a week or so earlier. The ER doctor asks me how I would feel if they sent me home, and I just had a bad feeling about it all. I told him as such, and that I had no real basis for it except that I just felt off about it. He said, fair enough. Let's try one more test, and if that comes back negative, then we'll send you up to general medicine and see if they can track something down. That test was a VQ scan that found despite all other tests showing no results for blood clots, I actually had a whole bunch of them in both lungs. I ended up with a diagnosis of unprovoked bilateral pulmonary embolisms and am on blood thinners for life. Super grateful both for the bad feeling and the ER doctor who was willing to listen to it. EMT here. I was taught if a patient tells you they think something is wrong or they think they are going to die, you need to listen to them. Same for nurses. There is a legit nursing diagnosis called sense of impending doom that is in reference to this feeling. Someone can't explain what is wrong and there's nothing obvious, but we need to take it seriously. The body somehow feels something wrong when the brain can't find the words. I've found this to be very common with pulmonary emboli, heart attacks, and strokes. The body is so weird. I smelled burning plastic early in the morning at my family cottage and almost went back to sleep. I was around 15, but got up to investigate. A socket on the outside of the building had caught fire, and flames were shooting up the wall. The rest of my family was still sleeping, and there wasn't enough smoke for the alarms to go off. I ran and got the fire extinguisher, got my dad up, and put it in his hands and pointed him towards the fire. Stopped it, and called the fire department. My aunt told me a story about my dad, who greatly dislikes his sister and is an all-around asshole 98% of the time, calling her out of the blue one night while she was in college. She answered, he said he didn't know why, but he had this urge to call her to make sure she was okay. She told him she was fine and thanked him for calling to check on her. She never told anyone else except me, and hopefully a therapist or two, but she was holding the bottle of pills she was planning to commit suicide with right when he called her. 20-some years later, and she's very happy with her decision to live. In 2004, on Boxing Day, not me but my mother, family trip including all cousins and extended family on my dad's side to visit the coastal south of Sri Lanka on vacation, about 20 people in all. Well-planned trip. Last moment my mother didn't want to go, no reason at all. None of us could get her to explain why, but she refused to go. So we went inland on a different trip to see some other relatives. Around midday, the entire extended family now on both sides were sitting shocked in front of the television, watching the very same hotel we booked being washed away live by the tsunami. To date, she still can't explain what she felt. Not me, but my mother, saved my grandfather's life when he had a stroke in his chair in their living room. We had all started to walk around the development when my mother, after about 50-75 meters from the house, said, I am going to go back and check on Dad. I went with her, and I nearly witnessed my grandfather die. He was on the chair, conscious but unable to move or talk, just looking at my mother with bulging eyes. She called 911 once, then twice when she felt that they were running late. Ambulance came, got him on the stretcher, but it was too wide to fit out the door. We ended up tearing the door frame off to get him out. Because he was conscious, he actually remembers the ride to the hospital. He told us later that he heard the driver or someone say, "There is not a chance that this guy lives." That was when I was around 5-6 years old. He is still alive to this day, more than a decade later. At my mother's funeral, part of his speech was about how, without my mother's actions, he would not have been able to spend time with her during her final years of life. And for that, he is eternally grateful. It didn't save me, but saved a friend. A big group of friends and I were walking home from an event in a town we weren't used to. It was night, and hardly anyone was around, empty streets and all that. We were walking down a sidewalk that had high fences next to it, so when you turned a corner, whatever was around it was out of sight. One of the girls fell behind, distracted by her phone, I think, and I noticed, so I started drifting behind as well to become a sort of midway point between her and the group. Soon, we were nearing where we were staying, and our group rounded a corner, then started making their way into the yard where our living quarters were. I saw a car drive past us, then turn the corner down the street. The girl was still on. As soon as I saw it, I suddenly got this suspicious, awful feeling, so I stopped, and went back to the corner to keep an eye on the friend. The car drove past her, stopped, did a complete U-turn, and slowly started creeping up behind / alongside her. She was still on her phone, and wasn't noticing a thing. I stepped out from behind the corner, and started walking towards her. The car sped off quickly as soon as the driver saw me. It scares me that someone could have grabbed her, and none of us would have seen a thing. It would have just been one of those cliché movie moments where you turn around and realize a member of the group is missing. To compound that potential tragedy, she'd just gotten engaged a few weeks prior. I think the fact that we had worked with some safe houses in the area that discussed human trafficking probably aided in me being on high alert, and the area we were in was known for that sort of thing. I was 15 years old, and my mom dropped me off at McDonald's to get breakfast while she went across the street to get Starbucks. It was a shopping mall in suburbia, and we were on the way to pick up a new kitten a few hours away. Instead of walking the 100 yards to my mom, I sat outside waiting for her to pick me up. Teenagers, I guess. As I'm standing there, a guy in an old station wagon with 2 kids in the back starts talking to me. He asks me where I'm going, and I say whatever town it was. He says he's going there too with his kids, and asks if I want to come. I tell him no, that my mom is across the street, and he comes closer. My gut is saying something is off, so I see a random woman walk out of Starbucks, and I point to her and say, "That's my mom right there." He freaked out and left really quick. I still remember those 2 kids in the back seat. They looked so off. I wonder to this day if they were okay. Not mine, but my dad's. I was downstairs helping him with some woodworking when I was 10 or 11. He went to run a 2x4 through the table saw when he noticed I was at his elbow rather than behind him. He stopped and told me to never stand behind a board when it's going through the saw in case it gets thrown. I thought he was being overly cautious, and I didn't have as good of a view from behind him, but whatever, I got behind him. He flipped on the saw and ran the board through. He only got 1/3 of the way through though, when the blade hit a knot and flung the 2x4 hard enough to crash against the wall 10 feet behind. If I hadn't moved, it would have hit me square in the chest and could have killed me. My former boss had a board kick out and hit him in the chest or stomach in his late 60s. They did an MRI, or CAT scan, I never remember the correct terminology, to check for internal bleeding. No injury found, but they found 11 aneurysms in his chest, stomach, and legs. He had surgery quickly after to repair the worst, and then multiple surgeries to repair the rest over the 8 years we worked together. An accident literally saved his life. I was an unpopular kid, and I always wanted to go on sleepovers, but it rarely happened. In 6th or 7th grade, I get invited to this girl's house for a birthday party. I am friendly with her, but not close. I go to her house, and I feel weird right away. Her mom and stepdad were sitting in the living room smoking, but being perfectly friendly. The whole night, I couldn't shake this feeling of oppressiveness, despair, and danger. I spent the evening keeping my guard up and keeping an eye out for the entire family, without any idea why. At night, the girl begs me to spend the night. Even though it hurt to say no when I could tell she was desperate, I lied and told her my parents wouldn't let me, when they said over the phone they would. A couple of months later, a student told me she had left the school and moved because her stepfather would molest her at night in her bed. I think of her often and hope she wasn't hurt that night and hope she's doing better, but I'm glad I got out. I was president of a club, and a guy who'd recently joined just set off my alarm bells, but he never did anything wrong. I still couldn't shake the feeling he was off. I asked my best friend, a pretty burly guy, to just keep an eye on him during a conference we went to. Most of the club, minus me, went to a party at the conference. My best friend kept an eye on the weird guy for most of the night and ended up stopping him from raping a passed-out drunk girl. I pretty much always trust my gut feelings now. I was falling asleep in the car. My friend was driving. All of a sudden, he stops talking, and I think to myself, WTF? Something's not right. I open my eyes and turn over. Dude was having a seizure. His legs were stiff as fuck, and his foot was on the gas. We were going downhill towards a busy intersection. We had the red, so I slammed the car in park and pulled the keys out. Car starts rattling, making a weird noise, but it gained so much momentum it was still rolling down. So I grabbed the steering wheel and veered us off the road into the side of an abandoned building. I opened his door and climbed over him. I was able to get him out and turn him on his side. The police officer that showed up was like, "You couldn't have done this in a safer fashion?" I just said sorry, but inside I was like, "Fuck you." Dick response from the cops, who in their right mind would think about this shit in a logical manner. "It's an emergency. You're not trained for this shit. And honestly, no one got hurt. You were a hero." I had an instance where I was traveling down I-5 near Wilsonville, Oregon. It's 3 lanes, and I watched a guy go from the far left lane through the other 2 with no blinker fairly rapidly. Everyone went past, but I had the feeling something was wrong. As I came up next to him, I watched him continue off the road and driving over steel wire barricades held up by short steel posts, just ripping his truck apart. Everyone else continued past, but I slowed and moved over, keeping pace with this guy, just slightly ahead of him. Once I saw an opportunity, I went ahead and parked on the shoulder and ran back toward his still approaching vehicle. He was only doing about 5-8 miles per hour, so I managed to step onto his running boards and get inside the vehicle, slammed it into park. Fellow was having a heart attack. My fiance was on the phone with 911, and within 3 minutes they were on scene, and this guy got the help he needed. Saved him from a bigger wreck, and most importantly, his life. It wasn't mine, but my boss's actually. It was any old day at work. It was about to be dinner rush, and I was tired. As usual, I was going to go to the dollar store to get some Red Bull. I asked my manager if he wanted to split it because they were 2 for $5. He said no, but as soon as I reached the door, he said, "Wait." I asked him what was wrong, and he said I should go later. He didn't give me a reason, and we're pretty relaxed, so I told him to piss off. And as soon as I push the door outwards, I hear a sound I can't even describe aside from just breaking. Whatever it was broken. That's all I knew. Turns out an SUV drove straight into that dollar store's front door and their Red Bull fridge. My manager has annoyed me like that a million times, but I'll never forget the time he saved my life with his BS. LOL. I had gone to this bar back home with a few friends, and afterwards everyone was supposed to go to this house party. I was game to go from the moment I was invited. Halfway through the night, I had this gut feeling to not go. I told my best friend that she shouldn't go, but she insisted that she wanted to go because there were a few cute guys there. I couldn't shake the feeling that we shouldn't go, but she talked me into it. When we got in my car to head to the party, the gut feeling was worse. I grew up around cars and drive a manual. My best friend is completely clueless when it comes to cars, so I deliberately grinded the gears and jerked the car and made it stall, acting like something was wrong. I pretended to try to fix what wasn't broken, and after about 15-20 minutes of fixing my car, cops and fire trucks followed by EMS flew by us. I fixed my car, but told my best friend that I just wasn't feeling well, and she agreed and said my car breaking down ruined her mood, so we went back to my place to watch movies. About an hour after getting home, we got a call from a friend of ours saying that the girl who owned the house and who was throwing the party was cheating on her husband who was deployed and came back and leave to surprise her and caught her in bed with his buddy. Dude pulled a gun and started shooting at this girl and his friend while everyone else fled the house. I was in the Amazon as the end to a 3-month solo trip around Latin America. I wanted to enjoy one last walk through the jungle before leaving, so I left my jungle lodge around 8 a.m. to walk down to a small river nearby. I stop and close my eyes to listen to the sounds as the jungle is super loud with crickets, birds, insects, etc. Almost immediately, I got a weird feeling and felt really uncomfortable, which was weird because up until then, I'd only felt peaceful and happy. When I opened my eyes, I realized everything had gone completely quiet, which was definitely not normal and not something I had experienced in other rainforests I'd been to. It was bizarre. I immediately felt that I had to leave and fast. After I dipped and got back to the jungle lodge, I told the tour guide what happened, and he said it usually only gets quiet when there is a big predator close by. Thanks, but no thanks. I used to never wear my seatbelt. This was before they were annoying as fuck if you didn't put it on. One time I was sitting in the passenger seat of a car and had a gut feeling to put it on. Not even a minute later, we were hit by someone doing about 60 miles per hour. Cop said if I didn't have on my seatbelt, I would have went through the windshield. I always wear my seatbelt now. Kids, wear your fucking seatbelt. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to press like button and subscribe. I really appreciate you guys. If you want to suggest interesting Reddit posts, drop them down in the comments. Till next time, peace.